take a seat in that microphone, yes, please. Introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you very much. My name is Flo Rosowski. I'm a Jewish American and founder and member of Minnesota Break the Bonds. There's many of us in the room today. I live in Minneapolis. We are a statewide campaign calling for the divestment of Minnesota investments in Israel bonds. Minnesota money invested in these bonds goes into the Israeli General Treasury and then is used for a myriad of projects, including those that maintain Israel's occupation and system of human rights abuses. Some of these projects will be detailed momentarily. We already have 2,000 people from across the state signed on to our campaign, with more joining every day. Our demand for this divestment is based both on legal and moral reasons, and we'll take about the next 10 minutes to tell you about some of these legal and moral arguments. I've already given members of the board copies of the comments that we'll be making, and I encourage you after the meeting to look those over. Thank you very much, and with that, I'll hand the mic off.
Thank you, Governor, members of the board. I hope it's not insulting to say this is starting to look like Wisconsin. The people are in government.
The reason we're here listening to you is so this will not identify yourself for the record.
Yes, Governor. My name is Peter Erlander. I'm a professor at William Mitchell College of Law. I've distributed a short analysis of Minnesota Statute 11A.24, Subdivision 2, which empowers the investment range available to the board. There are essentially four categories with respect to investment in government agencies. One is the United States government, the other is Canada and its provinces, the third is states of the United States and municipalities, the fourth is international banks and other international organizations to which the United States belongs. The state legislature specifically excluded the debt instruments of other nation states. Although we may have sympathy with them, we may view them as good credit risks. Haiti, for example, we have a lot of sympathy with. A good credit risk might be Saudi Arabia. The problem is when we engage in public investment in nation states, it also engages the people of Minnesota in investments in nation states that have policies. And of course, not everyone in Minnesota agrees with the policies of nation states. So it seems to me that the range of investments of the board needs to stick within the parameters that the legislature has required, and I would hope that the board does that in the future. If a more thorough legal analysis is necessary, useful, I'd be happy to expand on these observations. Thank you.
May I ask, Consuelo, if you to the board, if we're doing illegal investments in terms of what statute authorizes the State Board of Investment to invest in? Or do we want to go to the Attorney General? I'm not sure who to ask.
I think it's something we just had the opportunity to look at the meeting, and I think we would rather have an opportunity to review.
I mean, our office would be happy to consult with Mr. Bicker, but we just got the letter right now, and we don't want to give a legal opinion on the fly here, so we'd be happy to read the letter and consult with you.
So we'll as council, review the letter and respond. I just note for the record, just looking at it, give a cursory look here, you say, reason to understand the board is considering investing or has invested in. I think the correct is that we have invested in.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I didn't
clarify for the record. I'm not considering at this point additional or other investments where but the board has invested. You want to clarify, Mr. Bicker, what our investment from my information? This is I'm new again. What their investment is.
We have three securities, fixed income securities from Israel with a total market value of approximately $18 million.
Current investments, yes. Nothing new considered.
Well, again, the managers are not precluded from making that decision. The staff is.
We're not aware of that.
Thank you.
Clarify. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning, Governor, members of the board. My name is Carol Ryden. I'm a retired attorney from Laverne, Minnesota. Can you hear me? Can we amplify? Is that possible? No. All right, my name is Carol Ryden, and I'm a retired lawyer from Laverne. That's in Rock County. Investment in
By the
Israel
Iowa-South Dakota border.
and South Dakota.
Iowa and South Dakota, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only,
Did Jim and Carol lose?
no, we're the only county in Minnesota with no lake.
Given the flooding concerns we have this spring, that might be a temporary advantage.
And just a few more Democrats in the lakes, just a few. I am a retired lawyer, and I live in Laverne, and I just want to say today that investment in Israel is contrary to SBI's own guidelines on international investing set forth in its most recent annual report on pages 48 and 49. SBI designates Israel as a country in Group 2 EMF countries. According to SBI's own language, these countries have legal protections for workers and human rights, but violations have been cited in the State Department reports. It is thought that violations of this type may lead to economic and social disruption in these countries, which may have an adverse effect on their financial markets. As you will find in the following examples you're going to hear later, Israel's disregard for international law, UN resolutions, and Geneva Conventions, we maintain these violations already do and will continue to lead to economic and social disruption in Israel, causing the SBI to violate its own guidelines on international investing, causing Minnesota to be obligated to adverse investments. Thank you.
Thank you. Comment?
Hi, my name is Raina Belche. I'm a student pharmacist, and I live in Blaine, Minnesota, and I'm a second-generation Palestinian refugee. Israel exhibits most, if not all, the traditional characteristics of an apartheid state, including the following: the existence of a separate and unequal system of law applied based on identity, which includes, but are not limited to, the following. Jews all over the world are offered full Israeli citizenship, whether or not they have ever stepped foot in Israel, while Palestinians who come from unbroken generations of existence in Jerusalem are only allowed resident status, and Palestinians in the West Bank or Gaza are not even allowed that. Jewish Israelis are allowed to rent, lease, or purchase property anywhere in the country, while Palestinians are not allowed to do the same, regardless of the fact that those same Palestinians have lived uninterrupted on the land for generations. Non-Jews are restricted in matters such as who they can marry, whether they may live with their spouse, and with whom they may associate. And roads built within the West Bank are designated as Israel only, thus prohibiting Palestinians from accessing these roads even when the roads cut through their own land. Through our investments in Israel bonds, we as people in Minnesota are literally footing the bill for these acts of discrimination, even though the African American fight for civil rights in the United States and acts of divestment toward apartheid South Africa made these types of bigotry abhorrent, unacceptable, and punishable by law.
Thank you.
Mr. Governor and members of the board, my name is David Smith. I'm a Catholic priest of this archdiocese and emeritus professor of theology, justice, and peace studies at the University of St. Thomas, and I live on campus in St. Paul. I studied Bible in Jerusalem for 2 years and served 4 months on Palestinian territories on nonviolent peace teams, so that's my background for this area. According to the Hague Convention of 1907 and the Fourth Geneva Convention, military occupation is considered a temporary condition during which the occupied population is protected under international law. The Fourth Geneva Convention details the required treatment of the occupied population. Israel routinely violates the protections of the Fourth Geneva Convention in dealings with the Palestinians. A sample of these violations include Article 33, collective punishment is not permissible. Article 3, persons taking no active part in hostility shall in all circumstances be treated humanely. Article 34, the taking of hostages is prohibited. And Article 55, the occupying power has the responsibility to ensure access to food, medical supplies, and other articles of resources for the occupied population. According to human rights groups such as Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and B'Tselem, Israel regularly disregards and acts in violation of these articles. Through our investment in Israel bonds, we as people in Minnesota are literally footing the bill for these human rights abuses, and disregard for the Hague Convention of 1907 and the Fourth Geneva Convention. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Santa Towns, and I'm a retired teacher of the St. Paul Public Schools. During summer 2005, I journeyed to Palestine, Israel on a St. Paul Public Schools travel grant. I returned to my students and colleagues with information on the conflict, providing substance lacking in the shallow coverage offered by the U.S. media. I went to Palestine, Israel well informed, but little did I realize that I would become familiar with injustices that surpassed my early life experiences in the Jim Crow South. I lived among Palestinians in occupied East Jerusalem and the West Bank who shared with me their stories of loss, humiliation, and unbearable frustrations within the Israeli apartheid machine. This is what I experienced. Deja vu moments through ubiquitous checkpoints where we were interrogated by intimidating young Israeli military men and women. Scenes in Hebron of Israeli settlers creating a terrorizing environment in which the majority Palestinian population are not allowed to travel upon sidewalks and roads. Terror reminiscent of apartheid in the U.S. and South Africa. Israel's intrusive U.S.-funded Berlin Wall that has expelled thousands of Palestinians from their farmlands and homes. Israeli repression of the Palestinian pursuit of happiness with its obsessive compulsive treatment, regulation of Palestinian movement. As a citizen of Minnesota and a recipient of one of Minnesota's retirement funds, I abhor the fact that my country and my state are contradicting American traditions of human rights in order to support Israeli apartheid with my taxes and investments. Thank you.
Ask how many other people wish to address the board.
6 more people.
Okay, I just want to point out, we don't have a motion before the board. This is an investment board. I mean, our purview is focused on maximizing investment returns for the beneficiaries of the funds. Without getting into a lot of detail from council, we're required under both federal and state laws to exercise our decision-making based on the fiduciary interest. In other words, what's the financial, maximizing the financial returns of these investments for the benefit of the fiduciaries. These are not taxpayers' dollars in most respects. They're the retirees' dollars that we've been entrusted to manage. So I respect your point of view, and I want to provide time to accommodate that, but we're not, as I say, we're focused here on making investment decisions, not international policy decisions here. So with that preface, if you'd like to address briefly the concerns, that's fine, but recognize that this is not directly within the purview of the board. We have investments that have been made, that were made prior to our arrival here, at least mine, and any decisions we make on altering those investments is a financial decision under the law, as I understand it. So, that's our well, let's call it our fiduciary responsibility, our legal responsibilities as the trustees of these funds. But please proceed briefly, please.
My name is Peter Mann. I'm from the Brainerd Lakes area. I did work for 3M here in St. Paul for the last 20 years. I've run my own small business in Minnesota. And on the side, I operate a nonprofit organization that imports olive oil from Palestine via Israel. In July 2004, the International Court of Justice, which is basically the Supreme Court of the United Nations, found that Israel's construction of a wall snaking through deep inside the occupied Palestinian territory is contrary to international law and violates the customary international law prohibition of the threat or use of force on any territorial acquisition by such means. In addition, the International Court of Justice noted that the wall violates the international right of self-determination of peoples and the principle of protection of civilian persons in time of war, and that Israel's construction of the wall violates various human rights instruments, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Rather than complying with the International Court ruling, Israel has continued building this wall. The wall now runs more than 400 miles within the occupied territories and completely surrounds many villages, resulting in the confiscation of thousands of acres of Palestinian land and preventing Palestinians from accessing water resources, crops such as their olive crops, workplaces, hospitals, schools, and even neighbors. Through our investments in Israel bonds, we as people in Minnesota are literally footing the bill for these breaches of international law.
Thank you. I expect those of you who come as far as Brainerd and Laverne to express your views to it. Thank you.
Governor, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to continue to speak. I really appreciate that. My name is Rachel Orville. I'm a public policy student at the Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs, and the way in which the money is invested is important to be articulated as a reason for why investment should continue or not, which is why we are presenting. Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention states that the occupying power shall not deport or transfer parts of its own civilian population into occupied territories. Since 1967, when Israel first militarily occupied the West Bank, Gaza, and the Golan Heights, the number of civilians transferred into the territories has ballooned to approximately 500,000, in clear violation of Article 49. These civilians live in Israeli Jewish-only colonies, served by roads and highways which may be used only by Israelis. The colonies are further served by infrastructure such as electricity and water, which is illegal under the same article. Through our investments in Israel bonds, we as people in Minnesota are literally footing the bill for this breach of Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. Thank you.
Thank you. So how many more people wish to address the board? One more. Why don't we say 1, 2, 3 more, and then.
Governor and Council, thank you very much. My name is Ellen Clemmy. I'm a graduate student of oral history from Northfield and the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Oh, thank you. Often referred to as the largest open-air prison in the world, and despite the belief that Israel gave up control in 2005, the Gaza Strip is entirely under the control of Israel through a system of walls, fences, checkpoints, control of the air, and maritime blockade. In violation of international law, Israel routinely and consistently blocks the movement of the most basic needs such as building materials, medicine, water, electricity, fuel, humanitarian aid, and food in or out of the Gaza Strip. The entire 1.5 million population of Palestinians, over 1/2 of which are children, are left without basic needs, the ability to provide for themselves, and the opportunity to live a normal existence. Through our investments in Israel bonds, we as people in Minnesota are literally footing the bill for these atrocious acts of stifling humanity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor, members of the board, my name is Sylvie Schwartz. I'm a Jew and a civil engineer, and I was one of 7 Minnesotans to go on the Gaza Freedom March about 15 months ago to break the illegal siege of Gaza. In December 2008, Israel began a 3-week military assault on the Gaza Strip that left at least 1,400 people dead, most of whom were civilians, and 300 of whom were children. This assault, called Operation Cast Lead, also caused massive destruction of the civilian infrastructure, farms, flour mills, and sewage treatment facilities. Operation Cast Lead is in alignment with Israel's self-created policy called the Dahiyya Doctrine, which refers to the illegal Israeli strategy of applying disproportionate force and causing great damage and destruction to the civilian and governmental infrastructure during a conflict. Through our investments in Israel bonds, we as people of Minnesota are literally footing the bill for these instances of collective punishment, disproportionate force, massive destruction, and severe hardship on the civilian population.
Thank you. Sir, do you want the final word? Okay, that's all your hand.
She will speak first, then I will.
Final word? You want to, I didn't see your hand.
Hey, Mark, you said he didn't see you.
Thank you. My name is Mark Trias. I live in Minneapolis. Fortunately, I'm not a citizen, so I can't vote for you, but I'm still thankful for the opportunity to express my concerns. I will not continue or repeat the litany of Israel's crimes, but as someone who had lived in Israel for most of my life, for 16 years, I can fully stand behind everything that everybody said so far. What I would like to say is that as a Jew and as a human being, I understand that even policies that are ostensibly pragmatic, completely pragmatic, like fiduciary policies, cannot be fully divorced from moral and ethical concerns. And in order for us, as Minnesotans, as Americans, to preserve our humanity, what is in Hebrew is called tselem enosh, we cannot be a party, we cannot foot the bill for crimes such as Israel, such as it has been detailed earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Governor, I'd like to make a motion, if that's okay, to direct perhaps the leaders of the group to engage with SBI staff. I'd also like to give an opportunity to the Attorney General's office to review our investments in the statutes to make sure we are following laws and that we are being good fiduciaries. And then if we could get a report back, that would be great. And so that's my motion.
Report at the court in the next quarterly meeting?
Yes, please.
Motion's been made. Any discussion?
No, I would be happy to take a look at it. I'd note that in addition to the legal arguments in the letter, there is a statute that says the SBI can invest in international securities subject to certain caps and limitations, and so we'd be happy, our office would be happy to work with you in terms of those criteria and get whatever legal advice is needed and appropriate, and happy to support the motion as well.
Okay, thank you.
Second that motion.
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Is there any other business on any other subject to come before the board? I thank all of you who took the time and made the travels to be here, and thank you for respecting your views, expressing your views respectfully, and I appreciate very much your participation. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Yeah, that's
I'll take your coat out.
Okay, we have another meeting. If I could ask people, I'm sorry, but we have another meeting to conduct here with the land exchange board, so if I can ask conversations, take it out of the room, please. Thank you.
Started mostly what we want to do with you all. I think there's about 40, 45 of us, which is awesome. It's exactly that. Just celebrate this victory that we just had. I think that the meeting went really well. I want to congratulate all the speakers for doing a great job. I think we made such strong points that they were getting nervous and wanted to wrap up quickly because they were starting to feel like, oh, I'm about to divest. Better get out of here. So thank you for attending. Thank you for your patience sitting through the boring financial part, unless you're really, really interested in that. And I think that what we'd like to do right now is just do some chants, feel the energy. I think first Bill's going to lead us in a song, and then we'll go from there. And he brought instruments.
Yeah. The Beatles wrote a perfect song for that. Hey, we're going to have you guys sing a part, and you Father David up to introduce the State of Israel bond that Minnesota Breaks the Bonds has.
Okay, we have a sample here of the State of Israel bond. It's been a little redone so that it illustrates what the bonds actually finance. The bonds are to finance construction, especially for new immigrants. And so what we have here is the kind of construction that Israel has been underway. And there are a couple of slogans that are being used by the State of Israel to advertise these bonds. One of them is not just a bond of Israel. And we're pointing out that what we have is the teacher here making a slight correction on the student's paper with the red pen. Not just the bond is impression. And you see the chain in the middle there, it illustrates the impression. And then below that we have samples of the kind of impression. What Israel is building, for example, settlements for Jews exclusively, and a barrier or wall that separates off the Jewish economy from the Palestinian economy in the West Bank. Special bypass roads that only Israelis can use, and that sometimes stop divide, separate Palestinian roads. Examples of settlers attacking settlers, and bulldozers destroying homes, and bulldozers destroying olive groves. Also there's an assassination man from a helicopter. And off on the left, one of the other slogans they use is invest in your values. And so I thought of what are the values that are actually being presented by these activities, and here's what I see them as being. If you actually talk to settlers, especially the more extreme settlers, you'll find that this is actually the way they talk. They'll say that we want to redeem the land from the water, which really means we want to seize control of it, and the Palestinians should move out. So to do that, we're going to populate Jewish only settlements and then expand the gradually, drive out the Palestinians through harassment, and deny free movement to all these checkpoints. And Christian exile will assassinate the leaders. Sometimes people say, where are the nonviolent Palestinian leaders? The answer to that is they're there, but they're not in the news. The other answer is many of them have been murdered or exiled. And an example of it is Mubarak Awad, found nonviolent senator in Jerusalem, who was exiled on a pretext. And then they destroy Palestinian walls, cisterns, homes, fruit trees, and other infrastructure. And just recently, you've probably seen in the news that they've been bulldozing various settlements, the Bedouin in the south, and also in the Jerusalem, the East Jerusalem neighborhood, where they've been taking over homes of Palestinians and destroying others. And all together, they enforce a separation, or apartheid. Apartheid is simply the South African word for separation. The Palestinian, the Israelis themselves call this barrier the separation barrier. So if we translate it into South African language, it is the apartheid barrier. So that's basically what's going on, is that Israel is setting up a separate economy and a whole separate system for Jews, and then expanding it to trying to have well, I've taken a photograph of it, and I have it on JPEG form, so if you want to play with that, we could do that. I don't know, we'd have to look and see. Well, we'll talk about it. It's an excellent idea. Some kind of flyer, if not a postcard.
Thank you, Father David. So I think we have maybe a little theatrical presentation of breaking that bond, do we not? All right, here's how the bond is going to be broken. And while Father David breaks the bond, let's do a chant that goes something like, what do we want? Divestment. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Divestment. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Divestment. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Divestment. When do we want it? Now. Louder. What do we want? Divestment. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Divestment. the bond broken yet? Oh, that just took a minute. Look at that State Board of Investment. It takes just a minute. All right, I think Phil Stoltzfus, another member of the campaign, is going to lead us in a couple more chants, and then maybe we'll have a chance to get out of the cold. By the way, my name's Elizabeth. I'm on the core team of mnbbc. I forgot to say that.
It is two chants inspired by Hosni Mubarak. Nervous. Join in with me. Muslim, Christian, Jewish, whatever. We are all in this together. Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever. We are all in this together. Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever. We are all in this together. Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever. We are all in this together. We are staying. The bonds are going.
We are staying. The bonds are going. We are staying. The bonds are going. We are staying. The bonds are going.
We are. Not just a bond with oppression.
Not just a bond with oppression. Not just a bond with oppression. Not just a bond with oppression. Not just a bond with oppression.
BDS, divest now.
BDS, divest now. BDS, divest now. BDS, divest now.
Okay, that should get you thinking about the chants we'll use at the next rally. Use your imagination.
3 times as big.
Creativity. Thank you.
Warmer.
Well, you asked what about the 30th? Oh, there you go.
Announce the 30th.
Yeah, that's what we're about to do. Y'all are organizers, so I feel like everyone's announce the 30th. Okay, well, for those of you who might not know, on March 30th, we're going to host a Day on the Hill, which will be here at the Capitol. But actually, it will start, I believe, right across the street in that direction at Christ Lutheran Church on Capitol Hill. And we will host a training from about 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the training will include information about Palestine, information about the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, as well as information about how to talk to your legislators. And you'll get actual paper material to take away on all of those things. And then we'll come over at noon to have a rally in the rotunda, hopefully, indoors. Although by March 30th, who knows what the weather will be like. But in the rotunda, hopefully we'll have 100 to 200 people that day. And we'll do some of these chants and hear from probably about 10 speakers, actually, from a variety of walks of life and of movements. And once we feel so inspired, we will go back to the church for lunch. And then throughout the afternoon, Minnesota Break the Bonds is setting up meetings with your legislators ahead of time. And so you'll just go and attend those meetings with your senator and your representative, and then hopefully come back to the church to report on how it went and fill out an evaluation form. But like I said, that's March 30th. It's going to be 9 a.m. till whenever in the afternoon your appointments are done. So you can take off of work right now and save the date. I think that we'll wrap up with that. So thank you all for coming. Maybe one last cheer. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.